All right. Well, I want to say welcome to tonight's Rutland City School District School Board Candidate Training. And I'd like to thank you all for coming in person and for those of you who are tuning in at your homes. My name is Debbie Singiser, and I am the Director of Board Services at the Vermont School Boards Association. The VSBA is a membership organization. It was founded in 1963. It's a private nonprofit organization dedicated to serving Vermont's elected school boards. We provide our members with services, support, and guidance as they lead their districts. As Director of Board Services, I get to work directly with school boards, such as the Rutland City School Board here tonight. I work with full boards. I also work with cohorts of board members, such as board chairs and new board members. And I do this work primarily as a professional development leader. So I do a lot of the learning with school boards, and I supplement what school boards do for their membership. So I kind of fill in the gaps when there's a need. School board members are extremely busy. They have a lot to do, both at the board and outside of the board. So the VSBA can be there as a partner to help school boards train new board members or provide some professional development as needed. That's all I want to say about me. I do want to ask our board members who are here with us this evening to go around and introduce themselves, tell us who you are, and just tell us how long you've been serving on the Rutland City School Board. So we'll start here with Mary Beth.
Great. I'm Mary Beth Lennox-Levins, and I'm in my 4th year serving on the school board.
Wonderful.
I'm Kathy Solsa, and I'm in my 6th year of serving on the school board.
And I'm Charlene Seward, and I am, I think, a little over 8 years on the school board.
Yes, you are. Stephanie Studley. I am 5.5 years in my second term as commissioner, and also the regional rep for the Vermont School Board Association Board of Directors.
Right.
And I'm Ryan Carney, and I am in my 3rd year currently.
Thank you all. Now, I use the term school board members, and I know that in Rutland City you use a different term. What is that?
Commissioners.
Commissioners. Do you mind if I use the word school board member? I might go back and forth. I'll try to remember to use commissioner, but I think you might be one of the only boards that use that term.
We often use the term members.
You do?
In fact, more so than we do commissioners.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So if I do say the word commissioners, sometimes I just want the audience to know that what I mean is school board members. They're one and the same. Sometimes you'll also hear the term school directors when referring to school board members. All sorts of names. So I'm going to show you what we plan to do this evening. We just got through the welcome and introductions. The next thing we're going to talk about is the essential work of school boards. We are going to touch briefly tonight on policy governance, and I'll tell you why in just a little bit. And then we are going to have a Q&A session with the current commissioners here at the table with me. And if there's time in the end, I'd like to just touch really briefly on how you become a candidate. If I don't get to that, there's tons of information. I have information I can hand out, as well as resources on the VSBA website that is open and available to anybody who's interested in running for school board, and it will tell you all the pertinent information about how you become a candidate. Sound like a good plan? Great. So first, let's take a look at what the board's responsibility is. When referring to school boards, we frequently use this term governance to define what the responsibility of a school board is. So let's just take a minute and think about what this term governance actually means. I put up a couple definitions on the slide. There's many more out there, but I liked these. One is the act or process of governing or overseeing the control and direction of something, such as a country or an organization. And then to govern, the verb means to exercise continuous sovereign authority over, especially to control and direct the making and administration of policy in. That's taken from Merriam-Webster. As you can see from these definitions, governance is really a higher level function. To govern, actually, it's a Greek word. It derives from the Greek language, and it means to steer. So, in other words, it's setting the direction of where an organization, or in this case, a school district, wants to go. So in our case, school boards, we are responsible for steering our school district towards something. And what is that something? It's a vision. It's a vision that we will talk about in a few minutes. That's one of our essential pieces of work. A vision is usually written, and it reflects the wishes of the community. So what does the community wish for the school district to be? And that is also something we'll talk about in just a minute. So by governing well, a board helps the district to stay true to its vision and its mission, to honor its purpose, and to answer one of the most critical questions for a school district: why? Why do we exist? For example, why does the Rutland City School District exist? What is its purpose? An effective school board member will focus on governance while leaving the management of the day or the day-to-day operations of the district up to the superintendent. So in terms of differentiating responsibilities in a school district such as Rutland City, it breaks down like this. The board is responsible for the governance of the district or steering it, while the superintendent is responsible for the management of it or handling the day-to-day operations of the district. So another way to think of this difference or this distinction is the quote that I put up on the slide, and that is that boards assure schools are well run, but they don't actually run them. So a school board's role or its job, what does it do? A school board acts as a trustee on behalf of the community to provide oversight of public education in the district. As a trustee, you stand in for the community, holding yourself accountable so that it answers to the community, to your community, for your performance. Elected school board members are entrusted by the electorate to provide oversight and to ensure that three things happen, which are on this slide. That every student in the district has access to a high-quality education, that the taxpayers get a good return on their investment, and that the district operates efficiently, effectively, and ethically, which is important for many reasons, not least of which is that it builds that trust between the board and the community. A good return on the investment, that's an interesting phrase just to talk about for a minute. This means that the budget that the board approves, and I believe you might be approving one this evening, the budget will deliver what's best for all students and provide a good ROI for the taxpayers. So this doesn't necessarily infer a raising or a lowering of taxes, but this is a very challenging thing to do right now, especially in public education, and that is to find that sweet spot between what the district needs to provide for every student to ensure that they get a high-quality education at a cost that taxpayers can afford. So that's really a hard part of being a school board member. I think I see a lot of nodding heads. They agree. This is made even more challenging these days because there are a number of cost drivers that are outside of our control as school boards. Things such as healthcare, special education services, and inflation, just to name a few. So we'll get more into this a little bit later when we speak about policy governance. So we know now what the role of the school board is. So the next logical question is, how does it do it? How does it do this work? How does a board ensure that these three things happen? Keeping in mind that its primary responsibility is not of management, but of governance, steering the district. Let's move on to that. So at the Vermont School Boards Association, we developed a way to help organize the essential work of school boards according to these 6 categories. Sometimes we refer to them as pillars. They are all equally important to the success of the school board, which in turn is important to the success of the district. We'll look at each pillar very briefly. And should you become a school board member, a deeper dive will happen during your member orientation, during your new member orientation. Now, this orientation, or sometimes we call it onboarding of new board members, is typically done with the board. Sometimes the board will designate someone to do the training, or maybe it'll be the chair themselves, along with the superintendent. And also, I should mention that the Vermont School Boards Association offers some training for new board members, again, to supplement and fill in some of the gaps that a school district can't possibly get to. So as you see here, the very first pillar or category of work that a school board does is to engage the community and establish a vision. The board is in its strongest position whenever it is engaged with the community. The board should develop structured and ongoing opportunities for the community to define and refine as necessary the vision for the school district. And this vision tends to be very much focused on student outcomes and student success. So Rutland City actually recently did this exercise through its Portrait of a Graduate. About how many years ago was that now? It feels recent.
We've wrapped up the strategic. It was
3 years ago?
When we started it, but we just finished it a year and a half ago?
Year and a half ago.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But and how long did it take? About
2 years.
2 years, yeah. So it's not something that you do every year. It's something that is important work, but it definitely does not have to be done every year. It tends to happen. Some boards don't do it frequently enough, but I'd say 5 to 10 years is a good amount of time before you want to look at your vision again. So once that vision is in place, the board then assumes responsibility for monitoring the progress and making policy and budgetary decisions to help move the district towards that vision. One of the most obvious times that community engagement happens is actually right now, around budget time, around the budget season, especially at the annual district meeting that every board holds. But really, community engagement should be happening all year long. It's something that boards strive to do better. Right now, it's important work because it's urgent work. But I would say that it's also important that we engage with the community throughout the year, not just when we're asking voters to approve a budget. So again, remember this saying, the board is in its strongest position whenever it is engaged with the community. So we're moving through these really briefly. So the next one is adopt policy. That's the second pillar of essential work. Of the 32 duties that are delegated to local boards in Vermont's law, the very first responsibility is the duty to, quote, determine the educational policies of the school district. The development, monitoring, and updating of school district policies is an essential role of a school board. The board must ensure that the district not only achieves educational results for students, but that it does so in a manner that complies with the law and meets community expectations. And remember that visioning pillar that we just spoke about? One of the ways a board does this is by adopting policies that are aligned with the values of the community as articulated in the vision and the mission. Once the board adopts a policy, it delegates the authority to the superintendent and their team to further interpret and implement the policy, which is often done through written procedures. Then, is the board done with policy? No. Now, the responsibility is to monitor the implementation and the compliance with the policy. If the issue is important enough to be addressed in policy, then it really should be monitored by the board. as part of its very important oversight role. And this is one of the foundational principles of policy governance that we'll talk to at the very end. So if you become a new school board member, one of the best things you can do is really familiarize yourself with those policies. Moving on to the third pillar is my favorite one, the board superintendent partnership. Perhaps the most important decision that a board makes is to hire a qualified superintendent to lead and manage education in the district or supervisory union. The superintendent is the overseer of the operations. Remember, boards provide oversight. They do not manage the day-to-day operations of the school system. Vermont law designates the superintendent as the chief executive officer, so sometimes you'll hear people referring to a superintendent as a CEO. As the CEO, the superintendent is accountable for the operations of the entire school system. Another way to think of this is that the superintendent is responsible for everything that happens in the school buildings. This is a huge responsibility, and when you have a good superintendent in place, you really want to hold on to them. The board-superintendent relationship is pivotal to the success of a school district, and it matters for so many reasons. Perhaps most importantly, it matters to student achievement. Studies have shown that in districts with high student achievement, one of the main characteristics of the school board was a good working relationship with the superintendent. So really, I can't underscore the importance of this pillar enough. Ideally, we want this relationship to be one of a partnership that's based on mutual respect and trust. And we strive for the board and the superintendent to always act as a united team, one where they work together collaboratively. So here is a breakdown of the roles of the board, the superintendent, and the school principal. Clarity of roles is really important to the success of a board and to the district. The different parties need to understand their respective roles so that they can do the job that is expected of them and stay out of each other's way. The Vermont Agency for Education has a handout that's linked here on this slide that gives more detail about the different roles and responsibilities in Vermont's school system. And it goes from the board to the superintendent to the principal. Again, I want to point your attention to that quote in the green star, that boards assure schools are well run, but they do not run them. Okay? Halfway there. The next pillar is developing a budget and assuring financial oversight. Boards have two important roles here. Assuring the education has adequate resources to move towards the vision and to achieve its mission and goals. So that's developing a budget. And then secondly, to provide high-level financial oversight to assure that that the resources are properly managed on behalf of taxpayers. And again, it goes back to that, ensuring that our taxpayers get a good return on their investment. So in this pillar, the board has 6 major responsibilities related to the finances of the district, which we will not cover tonight, but is covered in greater detail during a new board member's orientation. So for our purposes today, this is what that's important to keep in mind. That a budget should show the values of the school district as they have been articulated before. Remember that community engagement work that we spoke about in that visioning pillar? As a board member, if we have done our job to engage with the community and really understand what is important to them in terms of our schools, this will help us so much during the budget season when these tough decisions have to be made. Choices are often weighed against each other, and so we really need to be in touch with what we think our community members would want us to do. Remember, we're standing in for them as trustees. That term of trusteeship is very much applicable to a school board. We're entrusted by the voters to assure that our district is well-run on their behalf, because they don't want to be here. So the fifth pillar is monitoring progress. The board is accountable to the community to ensure that the district is making reasonable progress in achieving outcomes for students, and that the system is actually, that the system is indeed operating in compliance with all policies, laws, and regulations. So to meet this important obligation, the board needs to regularly monitor both areas. So I put up on this slide some of the ways that school boards monitor. And ideally, the monitoring tasks that a board undertakes should be done on a regular and scheduled basis. So, for example, monitoring student outcomes should be done on a regular basis, right? Probably not just once a year. The superintendent review or the superintendent evaluation actually right now is required in Vermont statute to be done annually. Policy review, that's an important monitoring task of a board. Financial oversight is definitely part of your monitoring responsibilities, as well as making sure that the vision statement is always applicable and doesn't need to be updated, that we have the right vision that we're steering towards. So this is a really important pillar for Vermont school board members, and is again something that we go into in much greater detail once you are elected. All right, we made it to the end. The last pillar, effective and ethical operations. As elected officials, school board members must act with integrity and adhere to the highest ethical standards. Ethical and effective operations are essential to a strong school board and, by extension, a strong school district. Effective school board operations are characterized by the following: board members who are clear that they have no legal authority apart from the board as a whole. We often call that the whole board principle, or sometimes boards might call it the one voice principle, that we as a board have authority, but we as individual board members don't have individual authority. Another effective school board member or effective school board is characterized by the fact that they understand that their job is, again, to assure that schools are well run, but we're not actually trying to run them. So staying very much in that governance lane. Board members should avoid actual and perceived conflicts of interest. This is something that's written into law. And board members must maintain confidentiality of executive sessions. Board meetings is where the board work is done. Board meetings are a public meeting, but it's not a meeting of the public. And this is an important distinction to make and to make sure that the public understands this, that yes, school board meetings are public and everybody is invited to attend or to view them, but it's not their meeting, it's a board meeting. The dates of regular board meetings are agreed to by the board, typically during its reorganizational meeting sometime in the spring. Meetings must be publicly warned, and they must comply with other provisions of Vermont's open meeting law. Boards are required to use Robert's Rules of Order to conduct their business. So these operations are covered during a board member's orientation, and the VSBA also offers its members tons of resources on both open meeting law and Robert's Rules of Order. So if you're not familiar with those things, you will be very soon. So that's it. That's it in a nutshell. Those are the 6 main categories or pillars of school board's essential work. Should you become a board member, you will learn much more, and you'll dive much deeper into each of these pillars and the various tasks that are required in each of them. So before we move to our panel, I just want to touch very briefly on policy governance. The Rutland City Public School Board is exploring an exciting new opportunity. and that is to adopt policy governance as its system of governance. By the time the new board takes its seat in March, there's a fair chance that the decision to move ahead with adopting policy governance will have been made. This board has been through one introduction to policy governance so far and has two more scheduled, two kind of exploring policy governance trainings on their agenda before town meeting day. And also, but I should also let the public know that a formal vote is required by the board to adopt policy governance before you actually move forward with it. So I think it is good for anybody out there who is thinking about running for your board to have some familiarity, a very basic understanding of what policy governance is, because there is a bit of a learning curve when it comes to policy governance. It's a different way of operating as a board from those that follow traditional governance. But basically, it's a means or a vehicle to an end. It's a way that we do governance, and it's a way for a board to meet all of its different responsibilities and the roles that we just went over. So it's not different from what we just went over. It's just a means on how we get that work done. Sometimes that causes confusion when I talk to boards. They think, well, what's the difference? You're telling us we need to do these 6 pillars, and now you're saying we have to follow this policy governance stuff, but it's actually a means to an end. It's a means to get us there. So what is policy governance exactly? Policy governance is a comprehensive set of integrated principles that, when they are consistently applied, allow governing boards to realize owner-accountable organizations. Starting with that foundational formula, or that foundational principle at the bottom of the house, owner accountability, boards exist, and the nature, boards exist because of owner accountability. Policy governance integrates these 10 principles that are designed to support this idea of owner accountability. Now, there is a bit of vocabulary to learn if you are a policy governance board, and this board is starting to learn that vocabulary. The word owner, for example, is something that people aren't always familiar with. So the board and the VSBA will help you to understand all these different terms. Again, tons of resources on the VSBA website and also here at this board as they move into policy governance. But right now, for the purposes of being a candidate, I'd say just know that it is a way of doing good governance, and it's based on these 10 core principles. And like its name, policy governance, 2 of the 3 core functions of a policy governance board are related to policy. So policy development and monitoring are really core functions of a policy governance board. But the policies that I'm referring to are a bit different from the traditional ones that most boards will talk about using or having these policies. These policies under policy governance I kind of liken them more to, board policies. It really helps a board understand its role and its job description and how it delegates its authority to the superintendent. The theory in policy governance is if it's worth putting into a policy, well, first of all, the theory is that everything that's spoken should be in the form of a policy. And if it's worth being in policy, then it definitely needs to be written down. And once it's codified and adopted by the board, then there's a very rigorous and regular monitoring schedule to ensure that these policies are actually being implemented. So ownership linkage is actually number 1 on this list, but it's the third core role of a policy governance board. And I would say that it's quite similar to that community engagement pillar that we spoke about earlier. We do use the word owners instead of community members because we want to be very clear and specific about who gives our authority to the board. And we as board members want to be clear about who those people are. And that takes us to the last slide that I have for policy governance. which shows the chain of authority and accountability in a policy governance system. I like this diagram because it's quite simple, and I actually keep it in my head quite a bit when I'm doing our work. And it actually applies both to a policy governance board as well as a traditional governance board. So the owners of our district are the taxpayers. They have the legal ownership over the school district. The board, which is that second level down, is obvious. We serve in that trusteeship role. We get our authority from the voters and the taxpayers, and we serve at their will. Below us, we have the CEO, which we know is the superintendent, and they get their authority from the board. And the reason there's a point there between the board and the CEO is because the CEO or the superintendent is the one employee of the board. It's the one direct report to the board. And they are the link between the board and the rest of the organization, the rest of the school district. Then below the CEO, you have the staff. And below the staff, we have the customers or clients. Sometimes we call them beneficiaries. And in the context of a school district, those are our students. So you'll see from this diagram that authority rests at the top with the owners, the taxpayers of our district, and it's delegated down through the board, CEO, and staff. Similarly, accountability flows up. Ultimately, we as a board are accountable to the owners of the district, which are the taxpayers. So I just think this is a really interesting diagram and really easy to wrap your head around. So that's it for me talking. I want to turn now to our panel of commissioners who have very generously volunteered or been voluntold to be here this evening. We are really fortunate to have you all, to have 5 of you with us. They have a ton of experience, as you heard in their introductions. They have a lot of experience among them. And I have prepared some questions to ask them. And if there's any questions from the audience, I know we can't really take questions from the live audience who are watching this evening, but if there's anybody in the room that would like to ask a question, this is your opportunity. But I will get us started by asking our commissioners a couple questions, and they have not been told what these questions are, so I apologize for not giving these to you, but I promise you they're not difficult to answer. So we're just gonna popcorn around. I don't think we have enough time to go ask every question of every board member, so if you don't mind, I'm randomly gonna call on you, but if you feel like you really wanna add something that's been said, then please do that. So my first question, I think I will probably start with Charlene, because you are our longest serving commissioner here at the table. Why did you initially decide to run for school board or to run as a school commissioner
Well,
8 years ago?
Once upon a time, I had 3 children around the dinner table. And as a parent, I was just interested in the environment and the system that they were in all day long. You know, so what better way to learn about what's happening than becoming a school board member? And then, obviously, they've grown up and moved on. They're not in this district anymore, but I guess I'm still a taxpayer and I'm still interested and engaged, and I find it to be rewarding at most times. You know, so I think it's a worthwhile thing for people to want to look into. You might want to. I think when I first started, it was interesting. The hardest part was just learning all the acronyms that there are in education. You know, so there's a lot of language that's being, that's used in education. But for the most part, I think it's been a great opportunity for me to learn what's going on.
Good. And you're still here 8 years later.
And I'm still here. Yes.
So it must be good.
It's well worth it. Yes.
Does anybody else want to share why they initially ran for school board, if you can remember that far back?
You're up for election.
I was gonna say, yeah. I originally ran just because, as a queer parent, I really wanted to make sure that we had, like a little more representation of people who are, maybe a part of like communities that don't have a lot of representation always. Luckily I'm not the only one, but it's also, nice to have the camaraderie and, yeah.
Good. Thank you. Thanks, Ryan. Mary Beth, I saw your hand raised.
I was just going to go a little more 30,000-foot
Yeah.
view in that education is such a foundation of every community, and I just think it's hard to find people to run, and it almost feels like a responsibility to do something to give back, right? To help the community as a whole by being a part of the education system. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. That was it.
So, again, it might be difficult to recall this, but serving on the school board, how has it differed from what you expected it to be? Stephanie, you're anxious to answer that one.
When, on the outside looking in,
Yep.
people believe, and the community believes, and I kind of thought it at the beginning as well, is we run the school.
Uh-huh.
Like, we do everything. But in reality, we don't. And it's very eye-opening in what our role is compared to what the superintendent and the principals within the building are. And it's definitely, each year on the board, I've learned different things and changed my perception and how I do my role as a board member each year.
Good.
Knowledge is power, obviously.
Oh.
And if it's something that you're interested in, if you're wondering, if you have questions, what better way to get those questions answered than stepping up and being a school board member? And you'll be able to learn a lot of things that
You wouldn't learn otherwise.
You wouldn't have otherwise, right? So I feel like it's a great opportunity to be involved and be engaged with the community that, your own community. So I think it's a good opportunity.
And I had been asked to run for years before I actually decided to run, and that's one of my regrets at this point, is not doing it earlier. Yeah. But I did it, for me, at the right point of my life, and, and both of my kids are now out of the district. Both of them, I volunteered in the schools, so, I was in the buildings for 13, 15 years. So, so it's just it's a very eye-opening being in the school and then sitting in our role.
So because our aim tonight is to encourage people to run
Do it.
for this board, I wanted to ask the next question, and that is, what is something that's pleasantly surprised you about school board service? We tend to focus on the negatives and the hard parts of being a school board member, and there are many, but I know that there's also some benefits and some things that are pleasant about it. So name a few of those things.
Building relationships with a group of people who may not necessarily, if not meeting them in this capacity, may have not ever met them and been friends and building a relationship that truly, when you go through some of the negative and the positive, it definitely helps bond and helps the group, solidify a bit more.
I think it allows you to have a deeper, you can peer into what's really going behind the scenes and seeing the wonderful workings of the teachers and the administration, things you just wouldn't see on the outside that we get a chance to hear about more. And because we obviously get feedback from different programs that happen throughout the year, whatever, and we get to hear about the outcomes and the wonderful things that the school district is doing that maybe, you might not maybe just hear from if your kid was maybe in in elementary, what's happening in the high school. We get to hear the whole gamut of what's happening in elementary, middle school, the high school, at Stafford. So I think it's great. You get to hear all the great things that are happening.
And definitely the best part is when we have students come and sit at the, and explain something to us and like see the videos that like different, for different things. And that's, that solidifies all the work that not only we are doing, but the administration and the teachers and, it starts at the top and it's right, everybody has a hand in the education who is employed by the district.
It's also about the kids and watching them grow through all of the schools. Like I went to the Grove Street graduation, meteor graduation last week, and it was just heartwarming to have, played a minor role in their lives, but to witness their excitement about launching into the world is just, to me, very satisfying in terms of, community service. And also, I think we work it's a collaborative effort, so there's a lot of engagement between us, but then we make a decision and we are united in our decision. It's a collaboration that I really have never experienced before, and the coming to agreement. Yeah.
You have a high-functioning board, I'd say. You work well together. You get the job done.
We work hard at it.
We work hard at
it. Yeah. But I think, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I think we feel like we can each share our views authentically.
We build respect amongst each other. I think we have a respectful board, which fosters that professional behavior, it allows us to feel safe in communicating what we're thinking. Different ideas are okay. We've kind of fostered that, so I think that's great.
And to kind of build on that, at one point our board was in the paper, and it's changed so much over the last 4 to 4 years, and it's just, we laugh together, and we didn't used to do that. So it's really an enjoyable experience.
I don't want to ignore the people in the room who are here. Is there any questions from the audience for the school board commission? Otherwise, I'll keep going with my question. Go ahead.
I have one.
Yeah.
What's been the typical way that the commissioners have monitored what the superintendent does? Is it entirely based on the superintendent's report of what the superintendent is doing? Has the superintendent occasionally done surveys of the staff? How does that work?
Did you hear the question? Yeah.
Yes. Well, we're in transition right now. Jump in anytime. In the past, historically, we get reports from each of the schools, sort of set up as an annual rotation. And we also have a superintendent's report at every full board meeting. We have committee meetings for finance, policy, building. We have legislative committee right now. Am I missing any?
Staff relations.
Staff relations when contracts need to be negotiated. So a lot of the work has been done, a lot of the monitoring, Q&As are done in committee, and then there's a presentation at the full board meeting. But since we're exploring moving to policy governance, the Carver method, that may be changing. It may be that the committees aren't necessarily as important as they've been in the past. So we're sort of learning as a board what that might look like.
And what we've done in the past, too, has been an annual review of the superintendent. We have a process that we've followed the last 3 years. We didn't do it the very last year because Bill had already indicated his retirement, so we didn't feel the need to review him. And so we do a survey of the direct reports. all the board members and the direct reports had completed a survey in the past. And there we had a small committee of folks from the board who would review those and create a summary report for the full board. And out of that, we would also collect a self-evaluation from the superintendent. So the survey results, the self-evaluation would be collected into a report and annual goals for the superintendent. And then an annual monitoring of those goals. And
It's a
we've,
combination.
Yeah.
It's a combination of a
Yeah.
lot of those things that you had mentioned, survey, there was personal goals, monitoring, the goals and the outcomes by different methods of reports, and I feel like, so it's a lot of things that come together to measure that at the
Yeah.
moment, but it could change when we're talking about policy governance,
Mm-hmm.
what that would look like.
And something that we've recently done as well is, before we, like, in regards to the policy governance conversation, is one of the pieces of that is a work plan. So a few of the board members worked with the superintendent to come up with a work plan now through the end of the school year, and which is a lot similar, it's similar to things that we've already done, but it's in a more formal document. And in regards to the superintendent review, when a few other board members did meet with Superintendent Reed, I think October, to kind of set her goals for the year. So then we will have something to monitor and to review her on towards the end of her first year.
Great. That answer the question? Any other questions in the audience before we wrap up with one final question? All right, commissioners, are ready for this one? Come up, if you can, with 3 words that you would use to describe an effective school board member. What makes a school board member effective?
Listener, communicator.
authentic.
Engaged.
Engaged.
Collaborator.
Technically, it's 2, but critical thinker, I would also say.
Okay.
Critically, comma, thinker.
I'd like to second the listener piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a key,
Yeah.
that's a key skill.
Yeah, being that
Yeah.
of each other. I think that's helped us. I think we've all become better listeners in the last few years.
Yeah.
Patience and respect.
Yeah.
Oh, patience is a big one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Patience for what? The process, the way the process works?
Patients could be taking, we have different personalities here. We're a big group. Patience with each other, listening, being respectful of others' ideas, letting them, hearing people out, and there are responses back. Be thoughtful, but still taking, we're getting everybody's point across and listening to everyone's ideas. So I think Kathy's done a great job with fostering that with this group, with so many people, and being just, people feel, I think, open to say what they're really thinking, which is what we really want. We want transparency,
Right,
right?
Right.
So we're all here for the same thing.
right.
We all care about the district, we care about the kids, we care about our community, and obviously we're taxpayers. So all of those things get rolled up into just trying to do the best we can for while we're here.
That's a great way to end our discussion, unless there's anybody else that wants to add anything.
Just reach out and ask more questions if you have it.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, what is the best way for somebody who is interested in running for this board in particular to learn more about it? What would you suggest to them?
Calling one of us and having a conversation.
Okay, and
'Cause that's going to be your best way to really, learn
Yeah.
what our roles really are and how we work and
yeah.
what we do.
And your contact information's on the website.
Our contact, all of our address, phone number,
Yeah,
email.
everybody's really friendly.
You can found a lot.
You can find us.
Oh, sure is.
Yeah, come to a
Just
board
come
meeting.
to a board meeting.
Yeah,
A
that
board
too,
committee
yeah.
meeting.
Coming to
Yeah, the committee meetings are
Yeah.
open too.
And all of our meetings are warned on our website,
Mm-hmm.
so you can find the times and the location right on the website and just come to a meeting.
That's a great suggestion.
Yeah.
And definitely the committee meetings are, because that's, where a lot of our work kind of comes from as well, and where a lot of our information can kind of come out from as well. I would definitely recommend going to one of those. We very, 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 very rarely see anybody actually coming to those. They're usually about an hour long, and sometimes it's fun, and policy's fun.
This is fun. Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
How many Oxford commas can we count today?
Yeah, thanks, Debbie.
You're welcome. Thank
Thank
you
you very
all
much.
for being so
Thank you.
brave and being put on the spot a little bit tonight. I do appreciate your comments and the answers to the questions that I posed. And thank you so much for your service. I hope you all are continuing to serve in the new year. But if you're not, thank you for your service.
Yes.